Hello! Welcome back to another week of Circle One. We're joined live today. Very fortunate to have Grant White and Brandt Butt from Endeavor Wealth Management joining us today on the show. We'll introduce them momentarily. We're so lucky to have them. But first, just a little bit of an introduction to Circle One, our firm Auxesis, and what the heck the whole idea is here. If you're joining us for the first time, my company Auxesis was basically founded based on a bet, and that bet was the future of work and professional life was going to change. We thought that it would probably take 5 or 6 years until we started to see some of these very large changes, and I think we're seeing them a little bit sooner than we anticipated. And those changes are, our bet was that more people would be their own boss, more people would work from where they want, how they want, and on what they want. So I guess it was a bet on increased agency and autonomy and accountability at the individual level. So, in the past couple months, we've gotten very excited about joining some online conversation through a number of new media channels. And this is our foray into the world of live streaming. So we've had a wonderful time. It's been an incredible learning experience and quite a journey. And the show is called Circle One. And so when speaking with our creative strategist about the show and about what we might name the show, we batted around a lot of name ideas, and we like the idea of the name Square One, except there was something wrong with that name, and that is our thesis is that there are a lot of good things built into our conception of work, professional life, career, and leadership that don't need to be scrapped. And so Square One is the idea that a project is a bust and it needs to be scrapped, and then you start again from square one. And so we think there's a lot of wonderful things there to cherish and value about our traditional conceptions of professional life, work, and leadership, but maybe that we just need to reimagine the shape. Circle One, welcome. So, as I mentioned off the top of the show, I'm going to introduce our guests one at a time, and so I'm going to start with Grant. Grant White is a longtime friend of mine, somebody who I actually graduated high school with back in the day, and I've watched his career with great respect and admiration. And him and his partner, Brent, have founded a fantastic financial and wealth management firm called Endeavor Management. And I'll turn it over to you, Grant, to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a bit about your day-to-day and a bit of background on the firm.
Yeah, for sure. So, thanks first of all for having us on here today. I'm really excited about it. So Endeavor Wealth Management with our dealer IA Securities is what I like to think of it as an opportunity business. And I always describe it, what we do is we create opportunities for people and families to choose the lifestyle that they want to live. Primarily, we work with business owners, incorporated professionals. Those are our bread and butter. And a lot of that comes from our history and our background. Brandt and I both come from families that have owned and operated businesses for generations, and so we're really passionate about working with business owners and family businesses in particular, but like business owners and corporate professionals. We love helping those people to accomplish their dreams and their goals, and we do that through a variety of different service offerings, financially related. Whether it be investing. I mean, financial planning is a huge part of what we do, but that encapsulates like investing, tax, estate planning, and a whole bunch of other things that come along with it. But, I think, again, on a high level, what we do is we work with people to give them and help them take advantage of the opportunities to choose the life they want to.
Fantastic. Sounds like there's a lot of shared ground there in terms of our philosophy. Maybe we can explore that a little bit.
For sure.
Okay, excellent. So that's a little bit of an intro to Grant. I'd love to discuss both with both of you a little bit more openly, maybe a bit more on Endeavor's history and background. But before we get into that, let's turn it over to Brandt. Brandt's the investment advisor over at Endeavor Wealth Management. And maybe, Brandt, would you mind sharing with us and with our audience a bit more about your background, your day-to-day, and your connection with the firm?
Yeah, absolutely, John. First off, again, thanks for having us on today. My name is Brandt Butt. I'm an investment advisor with Endeavor Wealth Management. I won't, we'll get into a discussion again on Endeavor Wealth Management and who we are and what we do in the history here. Been in financial services now since 2012. I actually started with Grant when I was still in university. And originally, when I got into the career, I was at Asper School of Business, and finance seemed like a very interesting topic. But quickly, when I got into the world of finance, I quickly realized that people aren't naturally good with their personal finances. It's not necessarily an intuitive skill we develop. There's not a lot of education around it in schools and whatnot. And over time, I've my passion for helping people, business owners, professionals, whoever that may be, really take control of their finances and use it as a tool to propel them to, like Grant mentioned, achieving a lot of their goals and dreams. Really ignited once I was in the career, and I wake up every day excited to come into work, excited to work with the clients that we work with, and just really excited about the culture that we have here at Endeavor. So it really makes it a lot of fun when you get to get up every day and truly enjoy what you're doing. So excited to share a little bit more about what we have going on here at Endeavor. So again, thanks, John, for having us.
Awesome. Well, it's an absolute honor to have you both on the show, and you mentioned a couple things that I'd maybe like to dive in to with you guys. First being, I think, financial education in the current state of the world, and second maybe being a bit of information about the culture at Endeavor and what you guys have been trying to build there. So I guess I'll leave it to you guys to pick the order or how you want to approach those.
Yeah, I'll just start things off. I know Brandt has a ton to talk about on this subject because he's really passionate about it. But I think one of the key core beliefs that we have at Endeavor is lifelong learning. We're big believers in it. We encourage it with all of our stakeholders, our staff. I mean, you look at what my role is primarily in business is really supporting our staff and serving them and making sure that culture is developing. And so it's a big thing that we want to make sure everybody's continuing to develop professionally. But specifically more on the financial education side, what we find is that there's a lot of people who just really don't. I mean, finance is hard. I mean, I don't think anybody should feel bad about not knowing how to manage money properly. And frankly, it's as hard as anything is. I mean, I don't know how to do heart surgery, and so I don't feel bad about that. But finance is hard. It's weird because money is a thing that we all use every single day, and so because of that, we get this comfort level. It's like, oh, we know money, but there's a lot of complexity as it comes to personal finance. And so I mean, I'm a huge advocate. I know Brandt is as well, and we really work with a lot of people on educating them on how to understand money better. And sometimes that means taking your hand off the wheel a little bit and just finding trusted professionals to work with. But I'm a huge advocate for bringing more financial education back into the school system. And I think that there are some schools that are doing that more now, certainly more than, John, when you and I were in high school.
Yeah.
But I think that is happening more, and I think it needs to happen more. That people need to have a better grasp of the basics, because Brandt and I could talk to you all about how many people we see come into our office in their 50s who are looking to have a plan developed and have a goal achieved in the next 5 to 10 years. It's a lot more difficult when you don't start 20 years earlier than that. I mean, it's not always impossible. The earlier you start, the better. But we would love to see people getting into that much earlier in their life, because they're going to be that much more successful. Our society would be that much more successful. We'd all save a lot of money on taxes, probably, because we wouldn't have to pay taxes for government programs when people could take better care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So I could riff on this for a long time, but needless to say, we are very, very passionate about it, and it's part of our mission.
Does that maybe I'll ask Brandt this? Does that interest in lifelong learning? It sounds like it must be something that is foundational internally there at Endeavor. Is it something you guys are all focused on as a team as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of the younger members here. I mean, we're a younger firm, but I'm one of the younger members here, and we have a lot of smart people within the firm. And for me, the challenge to continuously grow, especially when you're surrounded by these smart individuals, it's really inspired me every day when I go home. Work doesn't stop. Maybe the day-to-day working with clients, a lot of that goes away when you go home in the evening, but picking up different books, whether it's history, financial markets, personal finance, the culture we have here, even at work, we have a bookshelf where there's books that Grant or some of my other colleagues have read that have laid such a foundation for their knowledge, and we bring them in and we bring them into the office so that if we hear someone like myself, or we have even younger employees where they ask a question, we have an answer for them, but we also know where to point them, where we learned that knowledge and who laid that knowledge for us. So that type of culture here, I find is an interesting aspect and unique thing that we have at our firm. And for me, I feel I've developed quicker as a professional because of it. There's always more learning to do, especially when you're dealing with complex things like financial markets, tax. Everything is always changing. And I think that culture has built an adaptability to myself and to a lot of the employees here. So I think it's extremely important. It's extremely unique. And it's something that's challenged me. And I can say with certainty, I've grown faster because of it as a professional.
I think, I just add on to that, it makes you competitive too. I mean, like, I've got, so Brandt, he was younger than me, obviously, but like Brandt's, like when he goes home, he keeps learning and learning and learning. And if I'm not keeping up with that, I feel like I'm going to fall behind,
He's nipping at your heels, eh?
Yeah, well, it's a good, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, that type of competition I love, because it's not like Brandt's trying to beat me. We're trying to propel each other. And with the whole business, that's what we're trying to do. And so I say competitive, but really it's supportive, and keeps us sharp.
Yeah, and sorry, just to add one more point on that, to Grant's point, it's not necessarily competitive, but when I hear these my smart colleagues talking about certain issues, certain topics, I want to be able to partake in those discussions and shape those discussions, not just be a listener. So early on, I had to listen. And I still do listen. We listen to one another, but a lot of times I felt like, I don't necessarily have anything to offer of value to this conversation, an opinion. And so you go home and you're like, well, I want to contribute. I want to be a part of that. And that's driven me to really take it upon myself to make sure that when I go home at night, my development in my mind, it doesn't stop. And so, yeah, again, extremely unique culture we have here. And I get growth from it, and I know a lot of the other employees are going to see the same thing as well.
Yeah. Would you guys say, I guess you're similar vintages, but slightly staggered in terms of, when you exited, your school life and got into the working world. Would you guys say that the conception of competition has changed over the course of your professional careers? Like we work at Oxesis with a number of small business clients, variety of sizes, levels of experiences, industries, etc. And I feel like I've felt that competition has changed even in the business environment from being a dirty word to being, something that gets people excited, like you guys are talking about, right? Like you're propelling each other. It's this camaraderie combined with competition, combined with being complementary and contending with each other at the same time. Have you guys seen that change like a little bit even in your work history?
I think, well, so certainly yes, but I think that's what makes really special businesses special at the same time. And I think that, like, this is a Simon Sinek thing, but like I think that businesses that are thinking about like an infinite game versus like just competing with each other, or just thinking about their immediate competition even externally, are the businesses that we look up to. And I think that if people are honest about it, like when you look at the most inspiring companies in the world today, they're playing more of that infinite game, and they're the ones that are succeeding, frankly, as well. And I think Brandt and I do that more naturally. I think that everybody at Endeavor is kind of more naturally doing that as well. But it's interesting once you recognize that, because we've both worked at places where the competition was internally, and you were like constantly just like trying to beat the next person in line, and that didn't propel the company forward. It might have propelled an individual career like mine forward, but it didn't propel the company necessarily forward, and the brand and what's really important. And so I think that it's a good question, John. Has it changed like for everybody? I don't know, but I think it's definitely changed for Brandt and I. And I think that we recognize that, and we recognize that in the businesses that we admire and try to even emulate, and maybe truthfully even in the businesses that we're investing in some cases.
Yeah. You mentioned something that makes my spidey senses tingle, makes my hair stand up on edge, and maybe you can walk us through this a little bit, and through walk our audience at home through this a little bit. We're talking about competition. Perhaps that draws to mind game theory and ideas of game theory. Can you give us just a brief little primer on what you mentioned about an infinite game? What is an infinite game? How does that relate to game theory? And how does that relate to competition in your eyes?
Do you want to jump on that one, Brent? Or?
No, I'm going to let you take that one, Grant. You've read The Infinite Game. I've yet to read the book, so sure. I'll defer to you.
You know what? I think I can boil it down to one thing, and it's that other people's success is not your lack of success, and it's actually good for your competitors to do well, because it's building a better industry. It's building for example, we have lots of competition. I mean, in our world, we're competing with large banks primarily. They're the gatekeepers of the industry really right now, and so our mission is about actually just building a shift in the industry to be more client focused. So that's our vision. I don't have any aspirations of running banks out of business. I mean, one, that's probably delusional, but two, that doesn't make our industry better. What does make our industry better is helping to change the consumer perception of our industry, and also giving the consumer what we feel that they really need, and making them aware of that, and so that they can make educated choices. But that doesn't mean I want to run people out of business. That's not what this is about. We don't get us wrong. Brandt and I are very competitive people. We've been in sports our entire lives. We have rivalries. There's people in our industry that, frankly, get the juices flowing, and we want to beat them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But what are the realizations I think that we've both had over the last probably year or two is that their success is not Endeavor Wealth Management's lack of success. We can all be successful, and in fact, we should be pushing everybody to be successful in the right ways, in the ways that is the best thing for the general public, our clients. But it's all good for society in that case.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard about the potentially infinite game, or I guess a number of games that you play in which you don't know how long the series is going to be, right? And so, I guess when you're playing a set number of games, you know how long the series is going to be. Obviously, the objective is to win the majority of the games, and therefore the objective is to try as hard as you can to win each individual game. And so I guess it makes sense to die on the top of every hill. Yeah,
and I think that, I think that's, again, what type of business shouldn't be. It's not a hockey game. It doesn't end at 3 periods or overtime even. Business can be infinite, and well, it depends on your goals. We have competition out there that their entire goal is to sell their business. So they have a 10-year, 15-year time horizon where they have to build up, and then boom, so that's not an infinite game that they're playing, but that's what they want, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, I think that our goals here are much different than that. We're looking at building an infinite business. And then if we're going to do that, we need to forget about those finite competitive issues that we all might even get fired up about every once in a while. You know what I mean? So it's just about thinking longer term, and also not making it about you. This isn't about me. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than Brandt. Brandt and I are key players in it right now. I hope one day that we're not. I hope that somebody else has taken over the mantle. We'll be wildly successful in that, frankly. But at the end of the day, it's about building something bigger than us.
I guess that's the most exciting component of it to me, and I've heard from a number of people something that I really enjoy, and that is the appropriate strategy when you're playing an infinite game or playing a series of games in which the number is unknown, is to get invited to the most number of games as you possibly can. And that seems like what you're describing, right?
As Grant was talking, something came to my mind about infinite and finite games, which kind of leads into what you said there, John. when you're playing a finite game, I think there's an opportunity when you're so hyper focused on an objective or a goal, and you're not looking at the game may be infinite. I think you expose yourself to making mistakes that can prevent you from being invited back to those games.
Yes.
And so I think operating with that infinite mindset allows you to step back and see the bigger picture of what's going on, which allows you to make better decisions for your business, for yourself personally, to ensure that you're in this game of business, if we're looking at it as an infinite game, to make sure that you're getting invited back to the table. We look up to a lot of the famous investors, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and I forget which one of them said this, but they talk about how long it takes to build up your reputation, but how quickly something can topple that and take that away. So we're very aware of that. And I think a part of that is because we view it as an infinite game, not necessarily a finite game.
Yeah. Wow, so I always love a good Munger reference to throw in any discussion. So, this is so intriguing how you guys think about this business strategy, competition. It's refreshing while also being, founded in history and tradition. So I love that. That's a philosophy that we bring to the table at Oxesis as well. It's like, we keep saying it's like we try and have one foot firmly planted in the past and one in the future. And you might come to our office and see all this newfangled technology and crazy software and hardware, and it's like they're just tools. They're tools for overcoming obstacles, which is a story as old as time, or at least human history. So I know, Grant, we talked about some topics, and I'd like to maybe get into a few more specific topics with you guys as the show progresses. And the first topic that you suggested was really pretty broad, but the future of business, what history has shown us, and the different kind of approaches or types of businesses, the categories in terms of, when faced with a period of uncertainty such as the one that we're faced with now. It's like, what are the three categories, and what does the future of business hold, and what can we learn from history?
Yeah. And I think we're in a really unique time right now. It's funny because I think lots of people are talking about the pandemic, but this isn't specific to the pandemic. What we're talking about here, actually, this is a constant thing that businesses are going through, and something that needs to be kept in mind. I personally, just before we get into those three categories, I just see opportunity all over the place. And that's probably part of our mindset here at Endeavor Wealth, is that we are always looking for opportunities. But, I was on a United Way call yesterday, and, there's a big concern about this is going to be a challenging fundraising year for all charities, but United Way in particular as well. And, you could look at it like that, or you could look at it, it's like, people inherently, especially in Winnipeg, are good people. There's lots of good people here, and they're looking for ways to help each other out. And so there's opportunity in that. And, when I think about business in particular, I think this gets into that infinite game mindset as well, because there's certain types of businesses that are thinking one day ahead of themselves. There's certain types of business that might be thinking about the next 3 quarters, or next quarter, I should say, 3 months. And there's certain businesses that are thinking 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now,
Yeah.
And everything in between. But I think when you're looking at how businesses are thinking about themselves, the longer term they're thinking about it, you have to get granular at some point. Obviously, you can't just have your head in the clouds. But the businesses that are thinking forward and trying to figure out, how do we take advantage of the opportunity in a good way? I mean that in the best way possible. Nobody's trying to take advantage. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Businesses that we want to support obviously aren't trying to take advantage of people, but there's taking advantage of situation, which is really important as well. So, I mentioned to you, I've been talking about 3 categories of businesses through economic downturn, like we're seeing right now. There's the casualties. First and foremost, there are going to be businesses that fail, and it remains to be seen how many in this situation, but it's the sad truth of it. There's going to be businesses that fail in economic downturn. There's the water treaders. They're simply just trying to get back to where they were before, or trying to just grip on for dear life, basically, right? So there's the water treaders, and then there's the innovators, the companies that are thinking about this and thinking, how do we get better? They're always doing that. You know, like economic downturn is no different from economic boom. They're constantly trying to reinvent and think about what does the future hold for our customers, our clients. What does the business look like? How do we get better? How do we get more efficient? And those innovators are the ones that tend to stand the test of time. It doesn't mean they're always changing. I mean, I think values are important. I think Berkshire Hathaway is a great example of that, where this company's been around a long time. The core values behind it have remained the same since day one, basically, and that's driven by the two founders, or the founders, Warren and his partner there, Charlie Munger. But like, there's just really solid business, and we've seen lots of businesses who've started up in an economic downturn. Like, you know, some of the best brands in the world, like Disney, started in 1929. You know, like the Great Depression.
Yeah.
IBM, Microsoft started during or just before an economic downturn. You name it, there's tons. I mean, you could argue Google. Google really started in 1998, just before the tech bubble, like burst. And so, like, there's lots of great businesses, iconic businesses that start during economic downturns, and they've turned out to be the best businesses in the world. So, I think that, you know, it's just a matter for any of the business owners watching. It's like, what do you want to be? And do you want to be, I mean, nobody wants to be the casualty, we know that. But do you want to be a water treader? Maybe you're okay with that. You know, like, hey, that's fine. But if you want to grow an infinite business, I think you got to be an innovator. Otherwise, you're just not going to get there. You're going to be outdated at some point.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit of a mindset thing as well. There's so many external factors, and I think a lot of the time it's maybe we don't have a choice.
True.
If we're thinking, you know, on the short-term horizon or a set number of games, it's like, I got to tread water right now, and that's all I can do, maybe.
Yeah.
But what do you think is maybe the catalyst that can help a business that may be in a sector, industry, or line of work that kind of forces them into that water treader category? How can they think? How can they, you know, project? How can they plan? And how can they bring innovation into their firm to help them, you know, flex their muscle and burst out of that category into I guess the one that you prefer, which is the innovator category?
You know what? I think it's a really good question. It's not easy, and it depends really industry by industry, right? But I think adaptability is really important. And you know, so in my family, for example, we have a printing business. I worked there at university. I'm not a big part of it in any stretch. My uncle has run it since he was 18 years old, and my cousin is now set to take it over. But the printing business has changed many times over. Now, are they still doing printing today? Yeah. But what kind of printing are they doing? Now they're doing a lot more digital printing, and they're doing it on more niche kind of jobs. They went from like having to make money. I won't speak too much to the details because I don't know them, frankly. But what I do know is before you had to do massive print jobs to make money. You're talking like thousands and thousands of units. Now you can make money on a much smaller number of units based on efficiencies, based on new technology. And they took a lot of gambles along the way to do that. I mean, there was times where my uncles told me stories where, you know, back, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 years ago, maybe, like he had to invest like $3 or $4 million into a printing press, a massive printing press. Like, that's a huge amount of money 25 years ago, or whatever it was.
To take on.
It's a big amount of money today for a small business, but think about like that. And so it was one of those situations where he'll tell you that it's like we either shut the doors or we took this massive risk and took this investment on. So it definitely requires adaptability. It requires a mindset to be able to do that, because not everybody's cut out for that. I mean, that's fair, and that nobody should feel bad about that either. But it definitely takes that kind of mindset. I think that you always got to be looking at it like, because, you know, there's lots of businesses that completely switch gears too. Like they switched from developing product A to product B, which are two different things, but they're able to switch from like, oh, this process that we do here is actually adaptable to this. Mm-hmm. And they can do that because industries die. We know that too. But companies don't have to. They can move into something else. Yeah. It's not easy, but they can do that. And adaptable minds and innovative minds are constantly thinking of that.
Yeah, you hit a point there, Grant, that I was thinking about something as you were talking, and it was interesting because you kind of came exactly to that point, and understanding your skill sets, because when you understand what you're good at, what you're good at sometimes isn't, it doesn't necessarily have to be industry specific. So you talked about processes and how moving processes somewhere else might be a good business decision. So I think it's important to really understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and that can help you to think about, if you're forced to, like now a lot of businesses are being forced to have to think of ways to change. It at least gives you some guidance on, okay, here's what I'm good at. How can that apply to other areas, other businesses?
Yeah.
What processes do I have? I think it's key. It's not easy. It's far from easy, and it takes a very calm mind in a stressful situation to be able to step back and see that higher level. So, having people that you can bounce ideas off is important. Because sometimes you're in your own way. Like you're not even necessarily aware of what you're actually good at, but someone else can tell you, hey, Brandt, you're good at X, Y, Z. That might work here. So having a good support system, people we bounce ideas off of, all of that, clear mind. We have an individual that Grant and I personally work with, and a lot of other of our professional colleagues work with as well. That he's that person that helps us to, during those times where we're facing challenges, that we go to bounce those challenges off of,
Yeah.
And that you're not alone. So or you shouldn't be alone. Try not to be alone. Try to find those people.
I got maybe an idiom or euphemism that's coming to mind that might be a bit cliche, but paralysis from analysis. And I feel like in the business world, we often talk so much about analysis, and analysis is very critically important, and all different frameworks for analysis, quantitative and qualitative, and just different ways of looking at things and really drilling deep and getting granular on your analyses. But I found in my professional career, it's almost as if like the flip side of that coin has been forgotten about to a certain degree, and I wonder if you guys resonate with this. It sounds like you're describing it, and that to me is synthesis. And it's like, you guys go off and do your own analysis, and people are running your own analysis, but in my mind, like the real magic comes back together when you start putting all those pieces back together again, and you realize like, where does my skill set overlap with an opportunity, or where can team members be put together in a complementary fashion? Or, if I present my results of analysis to this other party, it's like, is that going to spark something that just nobody realized was there before? Like, is that something that you guys are feeling? Do you feel like that's somewhere we're going? Or
I would just say I think a big part of our culture is synthesis, because I think you need to be open-minded to other opinions and other approaches and other perspectives. And I think that's what you're touching on, John, is that, like, are you open-minded enough to accept other people's opinions? And I think that has its limits at the same time. Like, I still think there needs to be a driving force. And this is kind of like it's like a Ray Dalio thing, where it's like I want to hear everybody's opinions, but at some point somebody has to, like, the buck has to stop somewhere. In a business, I think there needs to be some leadership drive, but I think good businesses, again, will take those differing opinions, those different perspectives, incorporate that into decision making, because as soon as you start thinking you've got it all figured out, I think you're dead. And you're not an innovative company at that point. You're not an infinite minded company, or even an individual at that point. So yeah, absolutely. Synthesis is super important. I mean, we don't call it that, but I think that's exactly what the culture that we strive to bring in. And other people are stronger at other things than you are too, we've got people at Endeavor that are far stronger at analysis, like detail work, than I am. And frankly, I rely on them for that work, because that's not my skill set. I prefer to be up here at the 30,000 foot view, evaluating things and strategically thinking about how we're going to make this better. But I always like to have somebody look after the number side of it for me, because again, like it's just not my skill set. There's lots of things I'll miss the pennies, if you will, otherwise, so.
Yeah. Well, it's, I think I figured this might happen, where we may throw around a few idioms, quotes, and metaphors, and reference to maybe some of our heroes, especially in the world of finance and in business. But there's two in particular that really come to mind. And maybe I'll start with the Henry Ford one. It seems like Henry Ford had that vision of the infinite game, or the undetermined number And I think he shared that intuition with you, Grant, that it's like he can rely on other people for the specialization and the analysis, and his job is to be up at that 30,000 foot level, at the true executive level, and trying to work on strategy. I guess the story that I'm referring to, and I can't remember exactly the story. I think it might be from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which I don't know, but it was about a lawyer who tried to put the gears to Henry Ford for not understanding how a specific machine on his factory floor worked when they first moved to a production line environment. And I think he turned it right back on him and said, what are you talking about? I don't need to know how that machine works. Like, I put people I trust who have that skill set, who are extremely capable there, and I trust them.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy in periods of unrest or uncertainty to maybe forget that that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think and even like Jack Ma is a good example of that today with Alibaba. I mean, Jack Ma is not a computer scientist, really. I mean, I think he knows more than I do probably about it. But like, I'm reading one of his books right now, and it's like it's amazing how much like he's built this or helped to build this amazing company, this amazing tech company.
Yeah.
And that rivals some of the best in the world. But he's not the guy that's coding it. He's got coders. He's got people that know that stuff inside and out, and I think, there's different kinds of business owners and founders and some are more into the guts and the detail work, and some are not, and you don't have to be pegged into like one thing. There's lots of different ways to lead a company and an organization. There's common traits between a lot of them, but yeah, does Henry Ford need to know how the machine works that makes the cars? No, he doesn't need to know that, but he needs to protect the culture that builds, that builds the brand and protects his people and the people that are the ones who are building those cars and the machines and so on and so forth. So it's just a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, we do have a bit of an audience joining us online and some questions from them. I wonder if maybe I could just pose a couple questions to you both from the audience here and get your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah.
This is going to rewind back a little bit to the discussion of the support network, and it's going to be get a bit specific. How did you form your support network, and how has your support network changed over the past few years? Can I turn this one to Brandt? And I feel like you discussed this briefly. Maybe you can give us a bit more detail.
Good question. How did I form my support group? It kind of happened. I mean, there's people I admired, and I put myself really around them. So Grant's actually one of those people. Like growing up, I admired Grant, and he was doing things in his business, so I wanted to be around Grant, and so I just kind of forced myself in a way into those situations where I could be around him. People that I trust, if there's people that I trust in my life, I gravitate towards them, and they may not form the support group, but often they know someone that can. One of the gentlemen the one I referenced about Grant and myself, I was actually the first person introduced to him through sport, and then through myself, I introduced him to Grant and so on and so forth. But really, I think it came to people that I truly trusted, people that I knew would be, you want people that will be honest with you. Actually, if you haven't had a chance to read Bob Iger's book from Disney, highly recommended as a leadership book. Him and Steve Jobs developed a interesting relationship, one that didn't start all that well, especially with Pixar kind of departing from a partnership with Disney early on, and Iger having to get Jobs back into the picture. But it was interesting to see the appreciation. One of the things I think Bob Iger really admired and really craved to get from Steve was that he knew if he went to Steve with something, Steve was going to tell him whether it sucked or whether it didn't.
Yeah.
So I think when you're building your support group, It's important that you don't build a support group that are just going to be cheerleaders for you necessarily. They will cheer for you ultimately, but you don't want them to kind of, be fueling a bad idea. You want them to be honest with you. So as you're looking at people in your life, gravitate towards the people that you know will be honest with you. And they may not be necessarily your friends. Maybe you encountered them in your life. Ask them for a coffee. People are more helpful than you think. When you reach out and say, hey, I'm coming to you. I want to ask you something because I value. If you tell someone that you value their opinion, they generally want to give it. So like, you make them feel pretty good. So finding those people that can be honest with you, I think that's a good starting point. But that's a tough question. So, but that's my 2 cents.
Awesome. Well, I think the context there, I know the specific individual who asked the question, and they're about halfway through a BCom degree right now, this person. And I remember being that age, and I actually just completed a BCom myself as an older student. And you mentioned Steve Jobs, and I know that I think Iger even mentions this in his book, and I think Steve mentions it quite a lot throughout his career, captured in his biography. And that is this idea of like, it can be very intimidating to ask somebody quite senior to you or like quite a bit more experienced to you for help. And I think Steve Jobs' comment was something to the effect of like, if you ask people for help, like you'll be surprised. They'll give it. Like if you just ask, you will receive in most circumstances, right? Sometimes you might have to like knock on a door more than once, but I think that's more of a bandwidth problem than a willingness problem. Have you guys found that to be the case?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just to add on to what Brandt was saying, I think Winnipeg is a unique place as well, because I think people really feel this sense of community here. We're the smallest big city in the world, or the biggest small town in the world, whatever way you want to put it. But people really want to help each other out here, and so I would not hesitate to go reach out to. I mean, it's a scary thing, but don't be scared. Just do it. Pick up the phone and dial. Send that email. Reach out on LinkedIn, whatever it is. And that's something that like Brandt and I both adopted in the way that we do things. Is like it never hurts to ask. What's the worst case scenario? They're not going to respond. I mean, that literally is the worst case scenario. They're just not going to respond, or they're going to say no. But there's so many people that would be willing to help out. I work with a number of university students, and they reach out to me on it's a fairly regular basis, like once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, just to bounce ideas off of me, and I'll always take those phone calls. And part of it is I think if you're smart, you're going to take those phone calls as well, because this is the future of potentially your business, the community, the industry. You want to be dealing with people that are doing those types of things. They're obviously out there. They're ambitious. They're wanting to get better. Who else? You can't train those. You can tell people do more of it. Yeah. But the ones that are doing that, it's like, man, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah. And you really would be surprised at how many people are just so willing to give you everything. You call us, we're willing to give you our whole playbook. If we can help people out, we will give you everything. And we're happy to do so, because it helps us. It helps further our mission. It helps further make people better, all those things. So
yeah. Well, you mentioned if they're smart, they'll say yes, and I think that might be the concept of business as a game, or through the metaphor of game theory. It's like if someone asks for help, that's an invitation to come play, and if the strategy is to be invited to play as many games, like you notice that opportunity and say, oh yeah, like you're looking for advice, you want the playbook, you want some help. I think people with the mindset that you guys are trying to foster and that resonate with your culture are probably going to take the call, which I think is a lot of folks. I just wanted to maybe also be honest with some personal experience of my own as well. And I'm so enthused to speak with 2 obviously extremely professional individuals such as yourself, with such a professionally minded firm that's focused on excellence in service delivery and the like. Recently my firm, I think we're 20 months or so, and over the course of our firm's history, something I've looked forward to greatly is the moment that I got to really start to engage with professional teams, to have people who understood how that machine on the factory floor worked way better than I ever could. And so I'm now just at the moment where I'm engaging with my first professional team, a lead lawyer and a lead accountant. And, it's man, am I ever nervous, like, to give those people a little bit of a peek into my business, and I'm so scared that they're just going to pull out the red pen and say, what have you been doing, you know? And I've gone through probably 2 to 3 weeks of interaction with them right out the gates. The advice that I've been given is to just seek out excellence in your professional teams, and it's obvious that you guys exude that. So I guess, I guess I'm just seconding or doubling down on your premise or proposition that great, intelligent, capable professionals like are always willing to open the door when beckoned. So,
and I think it's important that everybody takes a look in the mirror every once in a while too. Like, and I don't mean that that's not an easy thing to do. It's not. I think John, I commend you because like it's not an easy thing. Like you're so passionate about your business, it's your baby, you know, and it's not easy to hear somebody say you've done this all wrong.
Yeah.
Which I doubt that that's what they're saying, but you know, like it's hard. It would be hard to put yourself out there like that. It's hard doing a live chat like this and putting yourself out there because you think you might look stupid at some point, right? I guarantee we're all going to look stupid at some point. That's okay. But you know, if you're really honest with yourself, and if you're true about what your mission is in life and what you want to do, you're going to take that look in the mirror every once in a while. And then, frankly, it's a good thing. It's good to have somebody blow up your business every once in a while, just to say, hey, you might want to think about a bunch of other ideas, because again, that's just another perspective. But it's not easy. We know everybody knows lots of people that wouldn't be willing to do that, and again, it's okay. But I think if you're trying to build awesome, amazing businesses, infinite businesses, or you know, have major impacts, I think it's one of those things that you need to be willing to do is take a look in the mirror every once in a while and make sure that you're doing it the best way it can be done and get other people's opinions on that.
Yeah.
I struggled with that, frankly. I struggled with that for a long time. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, I'm a competitive person again. And so it was like one of those things where, I don't know, it's just like you always wanted to be beating people. But I think once you have that mind shift, like you realize that you're trying to work on something bigger than you, then you know you can switch gears onto that. It requires a reset every once in a while, though. Admittedly, like, you know, you have to like completely, like, you have to think about that.
Do you mind if I throw that support network question to you as well, then, Grant? Like, how did you come to formulate your support network, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot in the same ways Brandt did, but I think we're fortunate that we come from, like, the backgrounds that he and I both come from kind of fostered, like, we were both into sports, and so we were used to working with coaches. And now not everybody's in sports is easily coachable, and we know that, but like, I think in our case, we're coachable people. And I think it comes down to, like, you know, good mentors are also good mentees. It's a two-way street. And I think that, you know, when you look at Brandt and myself, I think that we're both those type of people. So we were naturally looking for those people in our lives. Like, and I've always admired certain people growing up. You know, what's funny though, is like, people I admired 10 years ago aren't necessarily the people I admire today. And as you learn more about them and learn more about yourself, really, those mentors you had back then might not be your mentors today. And in fact, you might be completely different direction. But in saying that, there's definitely some people that I even was talking to 10 years ago that are continue to help me out today. But I think you just have to, I don't know, I just looked for them. I always looked for them. Like, you know, when I was starting my university job, like Brandt did, I sought out the best performing people at the firm or the build or the company I was working at, and so I set up meetings with them. I set up coffees with them. Just pick their brains, and frankly, if they weren't willing to talk to me, then it doesn't matter. You know, you just move on. But not just in business though. Like, you know, I think what's interesting is I found mentorship in lots of other aspects of life. I don't do any business with some of these people now, and it's like, it's not, you know, for whatever reason, they're just, it's not a business thing. It's more like a mentorship in how we, you know, view our life, our business, and all that stuff. So I don't know, like, even United Way, like, you know, that's like, it's a personal interest, a thing of mine, and I find tons of mentorship and cross mentorship that goes on in those types of relationships. One thing I'd add though is, like, and I think about this a lot today because I'm constantly building out that network, is different skill sets too. Like, Brandt nailed it on the head with, like, don't just get yes people in your network, because that's no good to you. It makes you feel good at the time, but frankly, if all they're telling you is you're the best and you're doing everything great, you're not getting any better. So, but different skill sets. Like, I'm looking at, my mentorship group, and some of them are my really good friends. And what I'm looking for is like, okay, who has a skill set here? Who has a skill like marketing? Who has a skill set and maybe like, I don't know, law or tax or something like that, or completely outside of the business realm, like, like psychology, like how people think. I think that having different skill sets in your mentorship group is really valuable as well.
Certainly. Well, wow, a lot of heady ideas going on here. I was very excited to get you both on the show because I thought this might happen. So it's been a treat so far to chew on some of this stuff with you guys so far. But if it's cool with you guys, I'm going to try and switch gears a little bit. Something that we like to do in our show is an intermission. We had 3 topics lined up for today's show that we wanted to hit with Brandt and Grant here, and we got to 1. So first, I would love to explore the possibility of getting both of you back on the show, opening up invites to you guys if there's anybody that you would like to get on the show as a compliment to yourself. I'm going to get a bit of echo here, I think. But something that we like to do on the show is transition and kind of wind things down and get a bit more human, a bit more personal. And I'll try to transition out of the professional discussion with a Munger quote and synthesize a little bit. It seems like a lot of what we're talking with today is having a marathon mentality or an infinite business mentality in seeing your business as bigger than just you. And for me, I've found that really hard to buttress that against the day-to-day operational requirements of my business. And I think the best wisdom I heard ever about that comes to Munger. It comes from Munger, who obviously has like a longer-term mindset, but says the most important work you have is the work that's on your desk right now. And so the work that's on my desk right now is to ask both of you about yourselves outside of work. How do you keep balanced in your busy work lives? Who are you guys as humans, as individuals? What are your interests? What do you do on the weekend when you have a few hours for fun? And maybe I'll turn it to Grant to start us off on this one. Or sorry, Brandt. I'm going to turn it to Brandt first. Brandt,
okay. We're going. Okay. My life's a little more exciting than Grant's, so that's what we'll start with me for. No, I'm kidding. Like personally, so before wealth management, as we referenced, I was involved in sports my entire life. I played soccer competitively growing up at a provincial level, premier level. Played a little bit of hockey, not so good there. I was all right. And then when I was 16, I fell in love with the sport of boxing and actually started getting involved in amateur boxing and worked my way onto the Canadian national team as a junior at age 17, and then as a senior national team member at the age of 18. So throughout university, for me, I was a student athlete. I was traveling, across the world, competing for Canada in a very physically demanding sport. And at the same time, I was going to the Asper School of Business. My passion for boxing I'm no longer competing, but I'm still now day-to-day involved as the competitive team coach at the United Boxing Club. So I get to work with a lot of actually a wide range of athlete ages. But I particularly enjoy working with some of the younger athletes and helping to mold them, not only as boxers, but as people. Boxing, we talked about a lot of things about persistence and feedback and getting opinions. Well, boxing is the biggest thing where you get in there and when you know nothing, it really sucks in the beginning. And if you want to be any good, you kind of got to battle through that, take the punches and come out the other side. So I really enjoy helping athletes to mold themselves. As well at the gym, I'm involved in it's a non-for-profit boxing program called Rock Steady Boxing. Where we use non-contact boxing classes to help individuals with Parkinson's disease to help fight back against a lot of the symptoms they experience, and also give them a sense of community. So when I'm not in the office here, you'll find me at the gym. Obviously, right now gyms are closed, so we've been doing our best to kind of provide some programming via Zoom and some other tools. So I'm eagerly yeah, I can't wait to get back in the gym because like I said, if I'm not at work, that's where I want to be. I love boxing. A little bit of video games on the side. If anyone's playing Call of Duty, Kid Rock, WPG. No,
I was waiting
Gamer
for the
tag.
guilty pleasures to come up. I'm glad I didn't have to ask.
Yeah, it's funny. It's been a great way for me and some of my friends that I went to university with online gaming nowadays, and how you can play these games together and from across the world. It's been a really fun way to stay connected with them. We don't necessarily talk on the phone, but we get on there and exchange ideas, exchange some laughs, play some video games, and it's a great, for me anyways, it's a great way to kind of blow off some steam and just numb your mind. Like, again, there's a lot going on in our worlds, and that allows you to kind of numb your mind for a little bit and refocus, blow off some steam, and then come back with some energy back into whatever else you're focusing on. So that's myself, boxing, a little bit of video games, friends, family, things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Good to know. Health and wellness has been a big topic of conversation around here at Oxesis. Obviously, given the current situation, it's like, yeah, maybe I should be thinking about my fitness and my well-being a little bit. Grant, how about you? I'll turn it to you, man. Like, who are you? Like, Friday, 5 p.m. comes along. What happens when you take off the cape, bro?
What time? Sorry,
Friday, 5 p.m., 8 p.m.
Oh.
When does that happen?
He's calling dominoes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the gym usually at that time. I'm an early morning guy. Like I'm at the gym usually at 6:30, which is this is really cramping my style right now as well, because just the routines are way off. But we're all doing our best out there. I think that's what you got to do. I think that I'll kind of go back as Brandt did there. I'm probably that traditional Canadian kid that played a lot of hockey growing up, and I actually played a little bit of junior. I was out in Humboldt playing for the Broncos for a blink of an eye, and got traded actually back to a team in Winnipeg, ironically enough. So I had some fun there. One of the things I liked more recently, and I actually credit my wife Sam for this, opened me up to it, is that we love to travel, as a lot of people do, but we've really been into kind of strategic traveling, if you will. We haven't been doing the more traditional travel. Last year I was in Borneo, the jungle, on the island of Borneo, going to see orangutans in the wild. So I've been really interested in doing those types of things. And for me, it's just gaining better understanding. I don't want to get too out there, too university, but really understanding the world better. And I think that, if some of the things I'm really interested in doing is just gaining a better understanding of different people's way of life. And I think by doing that, it helps us out. It helps us to understand more about ourselves, helps us to understand. It always translates to business. But the funny thing about this, you're asking me personal questions, the more you dive into what you do personally, I think the more it translates into your business as well. Because when you realize you get down to the nitty gritty of it, you're always trying to do the exact same thing. It's always pushing towards the exact same things, whether it's your community work, the stuff you do with family, your business. That's what I found anyway, and I get back to this idea of opportunity creation. It's I'm constantly looking at that. I love it for myself, and I'm constantly doing that in my personal life as well. It's how do I create more opportunities to do more things, and how do I understand more things so that I can create more opportunities? So anyway, that's a little bit out there, but yeah, no, I've really enjoyed traveling over the last few years. I'm glad I got some stuff in before the pandemic hit, because who knows what that's going to look like in the next few years still. And I'm grateful for those opportunities. But yeah, I think that's kind of me in a nutshell, is just always open for opportunities, always looking to meet new people. I've been involved with, John, I know you've been involved with a lot of the startup community. I love that community. I love, especially this time going through what we're going through, I love hearing about new ideas and seeing if there's ways that we can help new people start up new businesses or vet those ideas. So that's something I'm really passionate about as well. I think that there's a good opportunity to democratize the way that startups are done and how founders are working within their own companies. There's a lot of piranha out there always looking to leech off of them. And so I think that there's a lot of good work that still can be done to help support our entrepreneurs and building up their businesses and keeping them in control and keeping them involved with that business. So that's something that I'm always interested in as well.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, the lunch hour is coming to a close here. You've now spent an extra 3 minutes with me. I'm sure you both have very busy Friday afternoons over there at Endeavor. So I'll turn it to you guys and just ask if you guys have any closing remarks before we wrap things up.
Brent, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Again, just thanks for having us on, John. This was a lot of fun. I didn't necessarily know what to expect, but I really enjoyed having this dialogue with you, and I hope that anyone who tuned in, received some value from some of these things that we're talking about. And again, I'd encourage everyone, and it does sound kind of cliche, but I'd encourage everyone, put yourself in those uncomfortable places, in those uncomfortable spots. Anytime I look at my life and I see the moments where I grew the most, it's the moments where I put myself and made myself really feel uncomfortable. And it continues to this day. Like we still have those same struggles of putting yourself out there. I still experience that today. I think now I just know that when you feel that that's uncomfortable, that's just a signal that it's right. So go do it. So that's what I would kind of close off with here.
Awesome parting words, Grant.
Yeah, I would echo that, and I think, and especially like in this time, like with what's going on in the world, I think there's a lot of people that are hunkering down and turtling and getting, letting that be their life right now. But I think that if you've got an idea, or if you're looking for an idea, or you're in that mindset, I think now is the time to act on those types of things. Like there's never a great time to do stuff. You just kind of have to pick now. So I would just get out there and do it and take that action. And that's pretty common advice I think you hear from people like myself. But you need to, as Brandt said, like make yourself uncomfortable every once in a while. That's how you grow. You can't do that without putting yourself in situations that you haven't faced before, and they're hard. We all know that, but get out there and do it. And if you do that, I think 2020, everybody's looking at it's like, God, I can't wait for New Year's Eve. Like, to hell with that. 2020, let's go.
Yeah, let's get it. Today, tomorrow, let's go. Awesome. Well, guys, we still have a small viewership, but we got a few viewers in the chat, and they are basically just sending their thanks and their kudos. One shout out for Prince George, saying they also tried out for Prince George, but another saying awesome advice and content. Thanks to you both. And so I'll echo that and say thanks. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on the firm. It's been fascinating to learn a little bit more about Endeavor. I'd encourage any of our viewers who are curious about wealth management and maybe getting a better handle on their finances and their horizon to get in touch with Grant and Brandt. And I'd also like to formally invite you guys back. Maybe in a month or so we can circle back and get on another chat together. We were hoping to discuss some high-level topics that we didn't quite get to, but I want to also talk about Tesla stock and commodities and portfolio management and maybe get even into some quantitative stuff with you guys, which I think would be a real treat to dive even deeper with both of you. So official invite back. Hopefully maybe we can pen something in the future, and a massive thank you to both of you for joining us today. So hats off for me and all of our viewers at home, I'm sure. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks, John.
Yeah, we'll be back. Thanks, John.
Great. All right. Well, now's the time I wrap it up. Thank you, all the viewers at home. Thank you to everybody out there watching and doing their part. Thank you to everybody out there getting uncomfortable and pushing through it. And of course, thank you to all the frontline workers and everybody out there right now who's doing everything that they need to do to help all of us out in such an important time. So thanks to everybody, for anybody watching or watching this in the future. I think there's some stuff down there and something that gets done if you enjoy it. I think you know what to do and what that looks like. And we can't wait to join you next Friday at lunch hour for another episode of Circle One. Over and out. Oh, I pressed that button and it was supposed to go to the credits. We're still live. See you next week, everybody.